Hi, this is A.J.B from A.J.B Counseling and Psychotherapy, a private practice located in Manhattan. Today we're going to talk about struggles, our life struggles that we're going through, which could be anxiety, depression, or a physical problem. It doesn't matter, because they all have one thing in common, and that's that it's misery. We're miserable as we're going through them. And we're going to talk about how to ensure that you come out of that struggle stronger, more resilient, as opposed to weakened by it. There is a predictor of whether you'll be weakened by your struggle or strengthened by it, and that is our core beliefs. So today's topic is going to be our personal struggles and the importance of our core beliefs. What's a core belief? Core belief is a central idea that we hold about the world, about how we relate to the world, for example. It is so central, in fact, that anything that happens to us gets filtered through it, and then we create an interpretation of what just occurred. So we can have positive core beliefs or negative core beliefs. Positive core beliefs are the type of core beliefs that lead to strength, lead to a positive life outlook, while negative ones are the ones that crush us, that leave us weaker as a result. And there's many, probably hundreds and thousands of different core beliefs that we can have. No individual has just positive and just negative. We all have mixtures of them. However, what's more important is which ones are we leaning on during given times. So as you're going through a struggle, do you find yourself leaning on a positive core belief more often or a negative one? That's the important question. I'm also going to give you some examples of core beliefs. So some examples of positive core beliefs, the ones that strengthen us, are anything is possible. There's a good reason for why I'm going through this. So this one's oftentimes, I hear this from religious individuals. You know, God has a plan, that kind of belief. And the third one is suffering is an opportunity to grow stronger. So this is like the idea that we build calluses that leave us more immune to future events. Now, some examples of negative ones: I'm not good enough, or I'm not strong enough. Another is the world is a dangerous place. And the last one is I have bad luck. So let me show you how relying on your negative core beliefs can lead to a miserable life, really. That's really what this is all about. So I'm actually going to draw a couple things. First thing I want to draw is your symbolic brain. This is a symbol for your brain, right? At the center of your brain is our core belief. I'm going to put a C for core belief. It's going to be a negative one with our example. Outside of our brain are life events. These lines represent just stuff happening in the world. Stuff is happening. Some of that stuff affects us. And when something affects us, it gets filtered through our core belief, and we reach some sort of a conclusion. Now, as I mentioned before, did I mention this before? Maybe I didn't mention this before. When you filter life events through a negative core belief, you reach a negative conclusion. A negative conclusion is going to be something, I call it negative because it's something that's going to, in the long run, lead us to have more negative views of the world, more negative views of ourselves. And over time, as we accrue more and more of these, our life satisfaction is going to drop lower and lower and lower and lower. And we don't want that, right? We don't want that. So we'll get into how to encourage more positive core beliefs. But first, let me just run through a couple of examples of how this actually works. How do we go from something happens out there, how we filter it through our core belief, and how do we reach to a conclusion that falls in line with that core belief? So here I have with me my little cheat sheet. I had to use a printout because there's too many different examples that I've used. So let's start with the negative ones. And let's start with, so we're going to start with this one. Negative ones, we're going to start with I'm not good enough or I'm not strong enough. And let's say the event that happens is that you're in school and you want to be an engineer. You really want to be an engineer, but you're failing math. Man, math is super important for engineering, right? So you have this belief that I'm not good enough or I'm not strong enough. Well, in this case, I guess I'm not good enough would be more fitting. So you're failing math, right? So this is the line of you failing math. This is you then interpreting it through your negative core belief of I'm not good enough. What's the conclusion that you could reach? Hypothetically, you could say to yourself, I can't be an engineer. I should change my major. What does that do? Lowers your self-esteem, right? So here you have a negative conclusion. Something else happens, right? Let's say, now let's switch our core belief. Let's say now we're going to give you an example of world is a dangerous place. And let's say you got very, very sick one day. So our negative core belief is world is a dangerous place, and you got very, very, very sick. You filter it through your core belief and you reach a conclusion. What could that conclusion be? Well, people get me sick. Dirty doorknobs got me sick. What this belief leads you to is increased isolation. People get me sick, right? Obsession over cleanliness, which increases anxiety. So increased anxiety, increased isolation. Doesn't have to be both. Could be the conclusion could have been just maybe people get me sick, or it could have been doorknobs get me sick. So now you have increased anxiety or increased isolation. All right, and our last example is I have bad luck, right? So let's say we lean on that core belief, and I have bad luck. So something happens. What happens? Well, I broke a leg, right? Let's say I broke a leg. I filter it through my core belief of I have bad luck. I reach a conclusion. What could that be? Man, you might say to yourself, man, no matter what I do, I always get messed up. What does this do? What does this statement do? It increases negative future outlook. So now you have more negative ideas about your future. Well, how do you think all of these things affect you? So far, out of the examples I gave you, first one, lower your self-image. Second one, increase your anxiety, potentially either increase your anxiety or increase your isolation. The third one, increase negative future outlook. How do you think that affects you? Over time, not just three things don't just happen in our lives. Lots of things happen in our lives. A friend lies to you. Maybe your pet passes away. All kinds of stuff happens to us. And over time, as we accrue these negative outlooks, our life quality goes down, 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 and down. We don't want that, right? So now let me run through some positive examples. If you were to harbor positive core beliefs, what would happen? What would your life look like? What would your interpretations look like? So again, we have our central core belief, but this time it's going to be a positive one. We're going to start with anything is possible. So again, this time, you still want to be an engineer, but you're failing math. So you want to be an engineer, but you're failing math. And you're reaching some sort of a conclusion, but you believe anything is possible. What might you say to yourself? You might say, there's got to be a way for me to get this. What you might do, you might study more, you might find tutors. What this leads to is increased determination. That's a good thing. We want that. We want increased determination. All right? Let's run to the next one. Next one is, there's got to be a good reason for why I'm going through this. Let's say, like in the last one, we got very sick. So we got very sick and we're filtering it through a positive core belief. What could you say to yourself? You might say to yourself, maybe I needed to build up immunity to this. Maybe I'll be exposed to this at a crucial moment in the future where I'll need to stay healthy. What is that idea? So this is again kind of like a religious spin. If you're not a religious individual, you don't necessarily have to use this, but I'm just giving you examples. So this leads to a positive future outlook. That's a good thing. We want that. All right. And the last one is suffering is an opportunity to grow stronger. So let's pretend that that's one of your core beliefs that you lean on. And you broke a leg. Damn, it's gotta hurt. All right, so you broke a leg and you make an interpretation. You have some sort of a conclusion about it. What might you say to yourself? You might say, man, any future pain I go through will be nothing compared to this. What does that lead to? Positive future outlook. So as you see, this stuff adds up. It's, again, not just 3 things, but there's a lot of things happen in life, and stuff happens, and you accrue these positive outlooks. You at the least maintain your positive outlook or increase it even further. You build resiliency. So that's the whole idea behind core beliefs. And this is why we really want to stay away from negative core beliefs and encourage as many positive ones as possible. All right, so we don't need this anymore. The next thing that we got to talk about is how to identify the kind of core belief that you're using. So I mentioned before, we have all kinds of core beliefs. We have positive ones and negative ones. We don't always lean on the same kinds of core beliefs. Sometimes the kinds of core beliefs we lean on depend on the situation that we're in. So I think a good starting point for you, if you're going through something right now, would be to take a look at the kinds of things that you're saying to yourself when whatever you're going through flares up a little more. So most issues that we face, whether it be massive amounts of anxiety, depression, physical ailment, they tend to come and go. They're not always maxed out. We're not always at our max misery level. When we're most prone to expressing our core beliefs when our issue flares up, right? Particularly the negative ones. So if you want to see what your core belief is, you're going to have to look at all the different expressions, accrue all the expressions that you say to yourself, all the stuff you say to yourself about the stuff you're going through, maybe write them down and look at the theme of them. So you can use your current struggle, or you can just rely on your memory and you can just kind of go back in time and see what are the things that you used to say to yourself about what you were going through. And what we're going to do is look at the theme of our self-talk, our statements. Is it, it seems like I believe that anything is possible. Is it, I'm just not good enough? Or is it the world's a dangerous place? What is the theme? The core belief is kind of like a theme. Now, the reason why we're going to have to do that, why we can't just kind of, I bet some people could just ask themselves, what's my core belief? And just kind of answer it like that. For most people, it's going to be hard. And the reason is that core beliefs are sort of like driving. So if you drive, or maybe you know somebody who drives, and you're familiar with this idea that driving is very automatic. A lot of times people will just get in the car, they don't think about the actions required to drive the car, how to change lanes, how to do all that. It's automatic. It's been done for so long that the person no longer thinks about it. Same thing here. We've used our core beliefs for so long that we no longer think about them. And one way to get back at them is to reconstruct them, to reverse engineer them. And to do that, we have to look at their products. What are the products of our core beliefs? Well, these are the conclusions that we draw about the stuff that's happening to us, or that's happening, that's affecting us, the stuff in our lives. So you look at the themes. That's how you get at your core beliefs. If you find that you are mostly relying on negative core beliefs, not good. We got to change that. And that's what we're going to get into now, how to change our core beliefs. But if you find yourself relying on positive ones, well, man, I was going to say, stop watching this video because you're in good shape. But no. Keep watching the video, because just in case, you ever fall into a hole where you start relying on negative ones, you'll know how to get out of it. So I'm going to tell you that changing your core beliefs is something that you already know how to do, because it's something that you've seen in action. But the first step to changing your core beliefs is, we're assuming that you have a negative core belief. God, I hope nobody's trying to go from having positive core beliefs to negative ones. Bad idea. I'm assuming you're trying to go from negative core beliefs to positive ones. First step is to identify a good alternative. What's a good positive core belief that you could use to replace your current negative one that you seem to rely on most often? So first, identify, I'm just write ID, positive core belief. That's step one. All right, so how do you do that? Well, I mean, you can look at my positive. I only have 3, but there's like, I mean, you can get as creative as you want. You can also check out, Google this online. You can look up something like, so CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is pretty big on these things. You can look up something like CBT positive core beliefs or CBT good core beliefs to have. I'm sure there's going to be resources out there for you that might help you get started on like just looking through a list and being like, oh, I like that one. Oh, I like that one. You know, find one that you like. Find one that you think is maybe flexible enough for you. Play around. You might have to try different ones just to see which one fits you better. But bottom line is we got to ID one, right? So you're going to identify an alternative positive core belief. And then we get into the whole idea of changing it. So this is the part that I mentioned that you already know how to do. You've seen it happen. So I'm going to put it in a box, right? All right. So step 2 is to disprove negative core belief. And what do you think the next step is? I'm sure you got it. It's support positive core belief. So why did I say you already know how to do this? The reason is that this is no different than you having some kind of an argument with your friend. No different. If you've ever seen a debate, like in high school, they have high school debates, same thing. What do people do when they argue? Well, first they try, well, not necessarily first, but they try to disprove they try to disprove the opponent's ideas and support their own. Same exact thing. This is exactly what you're doing. Did I spell disprove correctly? I think so. This same exact thing. You're going to be attacking the negative core belief with all kinds of arguments, any kind of argument you can come up with, and then supporting your positive one, again, with any kind of argument you can come up with. They don't have to be super strong. Just like in an argument, sometimes you fling anything you can find at your opponent during an argument. Weak, strong, doesn't matter. It's just there to support the overall idea. Same thing here. You're going to be flinging anything you can to disprove your negative core belief and flinging anything you can to support your positive core belief. So pen and paper is very helpful because you want to become very familiarized with all these arguments. And the reason why you want to be very familiarized, you basically want to be able to recite them from memory, is because you want to internalize them. You want them to become you. You want them to become automatic. The same way your negative core belief was automatic, it's a knee-jerk reaction. You want the opposite to happen. So you want to steady the crap out of this. Now, what's going to happen is, so first let me tell you, you don't have to necessarily, if you get to a point where you completely don't believe your negative one and you totally believe your positive one, great, awesome. It doesn't have to be necessarily that way. It may be enough for the improvement train to start rolling if you just cast enough doubt on the negative one and get to a point where you can say that the positive core belief might be possible. So you don't necessarily have to have absolute certainty for you to start relying on the positive core belief in a beneficial way. Because when you reach a point where you've cast doubt, you're no longer sure if the negative core belief is true, then you become more flexible at trying new ideas. It's kind of like this place of impasse. It's like you've got these different forks in the road. And that's when you actually be able to start applying the positive ones occasionally. You won't necessarily be always, in the beginning, you won't always be able to apply it consistently, but over time, you'll be applying it more and more and more consistently. As well as time goes on, you will be coming up with more and more arguments supporting the positive one and more arguments disproving the negative one. So over time, you'll strengthen it. You'll create that. You'll unglue the negative one and glue the positive one. So what's going to happen over time is, what's it going to look like for you is like if you're dealing with a negative one, your life satisfaction is probably going dipping. But as you rely on a positive one, first you might notice that the dipping rate is slowing down, and then stops. And then as you get better and better applying the positive one, it will start reversing. And your sense of strength and resilience will start growing. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover in this topic. I hope you found it helpful. I really do. This is pretty much all CBT kind of stuff. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, subscribe. Please do that. It helps me out a lot. Brand new channel, still trying to grow, so it helps. Anything helps. Share this video also. That would help a lot, actually. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to those. If you have ideas for future topics, feel free to share those. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's helpful, and I will see you in the next one.